Hi, my name is Justin, aka Ghost Reader, and today I'm going to be doing a review of The Mosquito, the human history of our Deadliest Predator by Timothy C Winegard. This publishes on August 6th and is published by Penguin Group Dutton. So basically this book is caught my attention because it's a mix of kind of like science and history, and you get to, in this book, basically Winegard seeks to show the reader the impact of the mosquito and infectious diseases that it carries. It seeks to show its impact on human history. So he begins by talking about the mosquito, how it came to evolve into the form we have now, and its connection with the diseases, mainly malaria and also yellow fever. And malaria has been a big killer of human beings throughout human history. If you get it, it's something that it can be a recurring thing too once you get it. So he goes on to talk about the fact that human beings have evolved some natural defenses against mosquitoes. So before there was bug spray or anything like that, there was sickle cell and Duffy's negativity, which is two of the ones he mentions in the book. Sickle cell unfortunately has its own complications, and it includes in the book the example of Ryan Clark Jr., who was a NFL player of the Pittsburgh Steelers, almost died because he had sickle cell after playing in Denver, Colorado. Duffy's negativity helps prevent malaria infection, but also increases the chance of getting HIV if you are exposed. If you're exposed to it, increases your chances by 40% of getting being infected and getting AIDS. So basically, humanity has been in a age-long battle with the mosquito ever since we've both been on the planet together. And he shows throughout history how the mosquito has influenced basically the flow of history. You see the armies of Xerxes battling the mosquito when they're fighting the Greeks. You see Hannibal fighting the mosquito when he goes over the Alps, and when he gets into Italy, he doesn't. Winegard says that he doesn't attack Rome directly because of the Pontine marshes there were endemic with malaria and sickness. Now the thing is, back then they didn't know that the mosquito was passing malaria, but they did make the connection between like marshy places and sickness. So Hannibal, Winegard speculates that Hannibal didn't attack Rome because of this, and the mosquito may be one reason why Genghis Khan did not continue on with his invasion of Europe and stopped in Hungary, because the mosquitoes and endemic malaria there were sickening a lot of his troops. And then moving up to modern times, Winegard talks about how the mosquito and malaria influenced a colonization of the New World. So malaria was not endemic in the New World. It had never crossed the ocean until white explorers came to the New World, and they brought with them not only mosquitoes, but since they themselves were infected with malaria, those mosquitoes bit those explorers, who then went on to bite Native Americans here in the New World, and those populations were absolutely devastated by disease. That in turn encouraged white explorers to then bring, or white settlers in the New World to bring Africans over as slaves, because they were better seasoned against malaria and yellow fever and had better survival rates. The mosquito then goes on. He describes how the mosquito helped save the American Revolution. It played a role again in the Civil War. Also, yellow fever was the reason why the United States did not hold on to Cuba, Winegard says, because they knew that they would have such high attrition rates that they decided not to annex it outright, because they could not keep troops there and keep them fit. Then he goes on to describe since we found out that the mosquito has been passing on infectious diseases like malaria and yellow fever, he describes our fight against it and what we've been doing since we discovered the connection between the two. The newest weapon against the mosquito malaria is CRISPR, which you can use gene editing, and we can actually use that technology to actually wipe out the mosquito. But it's more of a question of should we do it, and if we do, what are going to be the consequences of wiping out the mosquito. So for the first time in the war between humans and the mosquito, we now have the weapons, the tools to actually win the war against the mosquito and possibly wipe it out, but we don't know what the consequences of that would be. So this book was really good. It's really engaging. If you like history, I think you will enjoy it. It was really interesting to kind of trace how the mosquito was impacting human history, because back then they didn't know what was going on. They just knew that people got sick when they were either in really hot climates or near marshy lands, and then make that connection. So it was silently killing all these people, and no one knew about it. And we didn't learn about it until like until the late 19th century. And it's just really interesting to think that because of the mosquito, my ancestors were taken from Africa and brought here to work as slaves. So I really liked the book. I thought it was very engaging. I think it's a very interesting read, and it definitely sheds a different light on some of the events that I already knew about in history. So if you're interested in like history or like or science, because it's not really, doesn't delve really deeply into science, but it does talk about kind of like some medical science that was happening along with it. But the main focus of it is on the history and how the mosquito was spreading diseases and how that changed, or the flow of history, because it could have went one way. Perhaps if Alexander the Great doesn't die in Persia, possibly from malaria, who knows what happens? What if Genghis Khan didn't meet mosquitoes in Hungary? Would he have continued on? Maybe, maybe not. If the mosquito had not been present, spreading yellow fever and devastating native populations in the Americas, would white explorers have come to Africa and taken African slaves, brought them to the U.S.? Maybe, maybe not. So it's a very interesting premise, and very thought-provoking, I would say, thinking about the what-ifs if the mosquitoes and malaria had not been present. So that is my review of the mosquitoes, the human history of our deadliest predator by Timothy Winegard. It comes out on August 6th, and so if you thought this was interesting, I suggest that you go out and buy it and read it. And if you do, leave your thoughts on it down below. Also, let me know how this review was, if I should do things better, or if you liked it, let me know down in the comment section below. If you like this video, please hit the like button. If you want to see more videos from me, please subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at GhostReach28. You can follow me on Goodreads, link to that's down in the description box below. And you also can follow me on Instagram, and that is Justin the Ghost Reader. That is my handle on Instagram. So as always, keep reading.